will have to dedicate some time over a period of at least 1 month, assuming that you are working, and obviously during the week have much of a time, and you spend most of that time on the weekends. So keep at least a 1 month period for that kind of preparation. Preparation for the first application. If you have a question as to why do we actually need that kind of time, first application will typically have at least 4 to 5 reviews. The first draft is most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, the first draft is nothing but a data dump, and and you can kind of start reviewing and developing it from there, right? So that's kind of the timelines that you should keep in mind. So if you are looking for, say, first cycle of a particular college, please do not start 15 days in advance. You should be starting around a month before that, so that you have time in hand to come out with a good application.
That's quite true. I see a lot of students actually like.
And the other. Okay. The other point that I want to make, again, coming from a very Indian perspective, as how we expect B school admissions to be, say CAT versus GMAT based. In CAT based schools, again, it's all about the score, and and then the interview. In a, say, all international schools, including ISB, your very important part of your overall application, and an overall application is kind of a, it's like a basket, right? And in which GMAT is only one weight, right? You have other weights, including what kind of work profile you come with, what kind of extracurriculars you have, academics other than GMAT as well, right? The way that you have conveyed your short-term, long-term goals in your application. So how sharp is your application overall? All of that adds its own weight. So GMAT score itself is not a kind of a make or break, but it's one part of the larger basket. So you should be kind of careful to not to kind of undermine some parts of it vis-a-vis the others. So these are few points that I always ask candidates to keep in mind before they even start with the whole process.
So just a question on that. So there's a very common question that most of the students keep asking on our portal is like, what is the cutoff score for GMAT for ISB or some of the good colleges around? So just we're almost on that point. We can elaborate like what exactly is the process around there.
Cut off, right? So let me, theoretically speaking, if you are, say, if you are Virat Kohli, right, applying to they will be very, very happy to take you, right? Incidentally, one of my batchmate was Indian hockey captain. I don't know if you have heard of Virendra Skinner. Sometime back he was on Twitter, controversy with him and this other guy. There's this guy who comes on news channels quite often. So somebody had said something to him on Times Lit Fest, and people got behind him. So people like them, right? So if you have, say, so not like them, but even say if you are, say, a national level, tennis player, or you have a really, really strong profile, then even a low GMAT would do. But it would be safe to say for a standard, you should target.
Hello, hello, hello. Uh, Hey guys, just hold on. So we have Anshul will be joining in a minute. He just got dropped off. Uh, Hi Paresh, welcome to the group.
Hello,
Hello. Uh,
am I back?
yep, you. We can listen you.
Yes, I'm sorry. There was a power fluctuation at my end, and they kind of blew it
No
off.
issues.
Okay. So just concluding my earlier comment, I think at the point we left, there is no cutoff, but there's obviously it all depends on how how critical it is to your needs. If you have a very strong profile, a little less GMAT score would do, but a good GMAT score always helps. But at the same time, just concluding, a high GMAT score itself is not a guarantee to anything.
Yes.
So it helps, but it's not a cutoff. But it guarantees nothing.
Okay. That pretty much answers the question. So, well, let's take it forward. So we have Paresh who has joined us. Welcome, Paresh. So the next set of question that we generally get, Anshul, is that most of the Indian students who apply to B schools generally come from an IT background,
Hmm.
and so it's generally difficult to differentiate your profile among your peer group. So how do you go about presenting your application so you actually stand out in the group?
Yep. See, this is true, right? IT pool is by far the biggest pool at ISB, and for that matter, at all in all major B schools, right? So it is largely because a majority of it is largely an engineer pool that goes, and most of the engineers are from from the IT background. The joke goes, it's the IIM profile, right? So Indian IT male. If you are from that, you are at a disadvantage, but that's how it is. And most schools have a pre decided kind of proportion of what their batch should look like. So they would know that that the batch should have, say, 20% or say 10% accounts guys, It should have 30% engineers with IT background, 10% or a 20% engineers with non-IT background, and then a whole lot of all the quants and poets composition that they will have. So diversity. If you have the same profile, you have the same GMAT score and a similar profile with a say an SRCC, that will fly much more than same similar profile and even say an I don't know a DC or an SIT, or I don't know, even maybe an IIT.
Yep. And the other set of questions that we get generally is that so people are generally confused in the kind of geography that they apply into. So majorly they are looking into three different geographies. One of them is obviously the US geography, then the European geography, and the Asian geography. With the Asian
Correct.
geography, generally the idea is India.
Correct. Correct. See, I have a very simple approach to it. Typically ask candidates what is the geography that you are looking to build your career in, right? It's best to go and do an MBA from a place which where you want to settle, right? So if you want to be in India, it will serve you well to be doing your MBA from an Indian B school. Same goes with say a US or a European kind of B school, because again, what is B school for? It is essentially for kind of getting that kind of a brand, plus getting that kind of a alumni network group, and the geography that you study in will get you the network as well, right? So it is advisable to do your MBA from the geography that you want to settle in. That's my simple approach. People can have different ideas to that, but this is what I advise.
Hi Anshul.
Hi, is
Uh,
this Akhil?
Paresh.
Paresh? Yeah, Paresh.
Yeah, I have one question.
Hmm.
Basically, I want to settle in India only, but
Okay.
I want to work for some time in foreign land. So, and
Okay.
I'm basically have the trouble in fixing. So, where should I do that? Should I do my MBA in IIM or for in foreign land?
See, if you want to have an international exposure, it is advisable that you go do your MBA, from abroad. It's I understand where you're coming from, and there is no clear answers to that, because even if you go to ISB, you will get opportunity, or ISB or IIMs or whatever Indian schools. You will have opportunities. You will have international offers as well.
Okay, but
Okay.
culture in IIMs or in Indian college is, I have heard that it is completely different from what we have in US or Europe.
Different in terms of.
Different in terms of teaching, the global exposure, like that
Oh,
kind of.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. See, I'll tell you, it's different even within Indian schools. One thing that you do compromise on when you go to an ISB is the kind of international exposure. You will not have a class as diverse as what you will find in a US or an European B school, right? So
Yes,
that way, it will still have 90% Indians, or let me say 80% Indians, 10% NRIs, and 10% rest, right? 10,
okay.
even 10, less than 10% of say true-blooded foreigners. so, so, so that way, that is a problem, and that's a difference. With IIMs, it is again, and it's a very Indian school. ISB is more designed with an American curriculum and stuff. If you're very particular about an international exposure, you can go for an exchange,
Okay.
right? And anybody who is really serious about going for an exchange can go for an exchange. As against, I think in IIMs they have to, only the toppers go to the exchange, which I
Yeah.
find it's a pretty ridiculous idea. But any which ways, that's how it is, right? right? So other than that, for your particular case, let me conclude by saying you can think of it, but if you are going for an international B school, you will have to stay there for some time to actually repay the loan. And I'm assuming that you have to repay. You will be taking a loan.
Yeah, yeah, I'll be taking loan.
So if that happens, then you obviously you will need to earn in dollars to repay that, right?
Yes, yes,
So you can't take a loan in dollars and then repay in rupees.
yes.
Not we are few years away from that kind of a scenario right now.
Yeah.
So think about it that way. So if you are looking for a quick 2 years kind of a stint outside and come back, maybe you can still think of an Indian or say / Asian schools.
Okay.
If you are okay with say a 5-10 years stay abroad and then coming back, then go for an American or a European, what geography you are looking at.
Okay. Okay, Anshul. Thanks.
Right. I think we have a question from Akhil in the chat, right? So it's like most B school talk about the right fit and expect you to have communicated to some of the alumni. I have tried to contact alumni of my target schools, but they never seem to reply. What to do? Okay. See, typically, Akhil, my suggestion to you would be that for that, I think use LinkedIn. If you have to, you find you will know what are the alums who are close to you. Maybe take a premium version of it. You will alum who are in your network, maybe second level or third level, and try to get an introduction from somebody who you know. I don't know. There are no clear answers to that. Maybe you just have to work smart. And my suggestion would be take LinkedIn Premium service for a month, and you might just get to these guys. Most people will actually speak to you if you sound non-intrusive types. You'll say I want to just speak to you very briefly about something, and most people will speak to you without a problem, but most of the time why candidates end up not speaking is because kind of it drops off their mind, or you catch them at the wrong time. Yeah.
And it's
Okay.
also
Anubhav has.
just adding to
Sure.
that discussion.
Hmm.
Just adding to that discussion. So what my experience has been, so it's not that, I mean, I send a request to like 50 people and only 5 or 10 accept. So increase the number of requests, and that will probably help to get more number of accepts. And the more number of accepts, then you can probably talk to more people, and probably some will reply. So generally, most of these guys are busy. So increase the pool of the request and connections, and then probably you'll get better answers.
Yeah. And the only direct thing I can think of right now, unless you have a direct connect, is LinkedIn. I think
Yep. And
just
LinkedIn is pretty much good on that.
cool. Okay, Anubhav has a question here. So I have a question. I have a CGPA 7.3 from one of the NITs. Though the GPA seems average, but due to strict grading in my department, I'm still within the top 30% of my class. So is it advisable to mention the same in the optional essay, or will it have a negative impact on my application? Okay, Anubhav, absolutely mention everything in your application that helps you show yourself in a good light, right? So let's be clear. Your application is your advertisement, right? So you are advertising yourself in front of the in the app admissions committee. Hello. Hello. Yeah. So Anubhav, Anubhav, just working on that. Please do mention everything that you think will help you demonstrate that you are very good academically. Maybe above and beyond what what your GMAT is, or even what your direct GCGPA shows, right? So if you have won some kind of an NTSC, or you were graded kind of recognizable certificate or something, please mention. You should just not lose that opportunity. Does that answer your question? Do you have anything else, Anubhav? All right, great.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, we can take more questions, or Jay can ask some of those at his end then.
So we have a few more people who have joined in. The other set of questions is like we already discussed about the score, etc. And so what kind of so going into an ISB? Okay, we have a question. Let's take that question first, and probably we'll come to the other stuff.
Okay. Again, Nitish, thanks. No, you don't need to call me sir. Anshul would do. Okay, I'm looking for ISB Hyderabad as my target college. As you said, that it is not only the GMAT score which matters, but also the extracurricular activity. As far as I am concerned, I am the topper of my college and got good marks both in 10th and 12th, but no achievement in extracurricular activity. Being not so good in extracurricular reduces my chances of getting into ISB. Yes, if you say it as in as many words, definitely, right? So here's my strategy for all of you, right? Each one of us irrespective like any good product. At the same time, wherever whatever I'd say, you saying you are not very deep in extracurriculars, irrespective of that, please kind of dig deeper. I am sure you will find some examples, some things that you have done. If not, I would suggest, why don't you just do something now, right? I don't know, right? Join a Toastmasters club, right? Get into some kind of an activity happening in your office or something, right? Get something to write. So you should not draw a blank, and you should not kind of say that you are weak on that area. You have to. It's in a nutshell, what you should talk about is your strength. Nevertheless, cover your bases. Kind of have something going on the other ends as well.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sir. Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks.
So coming back to one more question. So comparing the essays that ISB requires the students to write, with comparing to some of the US or the European schools, those essays are quite detailed, and they try to get a lot of depth inside you. So how to go about working on those essays? Because if I can recall, when working on some of the NCR essays, they actually ask you a lot of details. They would try to ask you into pretty much different segments. So and we Indian students as such, we are required. I mean, we are taught that most of the time we are pretty much formal while we are writing, and there the writing is pretty much relaxed. So how to change change and adjust ourselves for that?
Okay. So Jed, on that front, you are right. See, I'll tell you, a lot of different schools have very, very different templates to how what they would like to ask. So you would have top USB schools who are asking only asking only 2 essays. At the same time, you would have schools like INSEAD, again, as you mentioned, which would have 6 odd essays to cover, right? And they'll kind of try to know everything from your professional life to personal life to whatnot, right? So on that front, I again from a very Indian perspective, we are very tight, very formal in what we say. It is typically better if you just need to loosen up a bit. Uh, One way, if you are thinking, if you find that what you are writing is coming out very formally, one trick that I suggest is write it like you are just talking about it to a friend, or maybe somebody who is you are reasonably informal with, but maybe one level senior to you, your immediate boss who is a friend of yours. If you are working in a professional mood, you do not look very formal. But in an application, yes, this is a very standard Indian shortcoming, which is that we are not able to put the personality in the application. It's very important that you put your personality and give out very perspectives which are sharp enough for them to make a view of you.
We have one more question coming in from Vivek.
Basically, I'm from R&D background, working with FMCG and R&D WorkX for 5 years. Of course, one point of doing the MBA is to get out of the R&D now and explore different role in same sector. How much do you think that R&D profile are considered in MBA schools like ISB? See, there are people from all type of backgrounds, right? So I can immediately think of few of my batchmates from ISB who were from R&D. I think one of them was from DRDO, couple of them from R&D in say the private sector side as well. I'll tell you, you will find people coming from all walks of life, very different kind of profiles, coming to ISB and all B schools for that matter. Say GMAT, that go through GMAT. Right. So, see, one thing is you have to bring out, whatever you are doing. I believe with R&D large teams, you would probably be working in small groups and going very deep into one or two subjects. Bring it out, demonstrate how critical that is, and what are the kind of skills that you have gained out of it. And although you want to move out of R&D, in an application, please do not make that mistake of saying that I have had enough of R&D, I'm bored of it, I want to move out. You should say, now I want to grow out of it. It's like I have won this battle, and now it's time for me to take up bigger challenges, right? So it's very important that you demonstrate that in your application.
It's important to how you sell yourself is most important.
Absolutely, right. So the same person can come out as a complete loser, the other and the same person, if if presented the right way, can be the biggest dude. Let me put it this way. Right.
So the other set of question that I keep hearing from people is like, how should you select your recommender? So you could probably be working in a company where your CEO actually recommends you. So how much that kind of a recommendation weighs out in terms of a recommendation that is just your peer or just your manager? I mean, obviously he's not higher into that rank, but he obviously knows you much better probably in that sense. So there's a lot of confusion among students around it.
So, oh yeah, absolutely. I find that all the time. So I'll tell you a simple rule: substance over designation. That's a very simple way to look at it, right? I can tell you, I know of cases who were recommended by nobody less than the President of India. A few candidates who I know, one candidate who was recommended by President of India, but he was not selected. Right? Can you beat that? Right. So it is essentially, it's not like I know he knows me by face and hence he has recommended, like he's a good guy, right? And that will not work. What will work is how deep have you worked, at what depth have you been associated with this the person who is recommending you, right? The designation of the recommender, or say his position, does not matter beyond a point. it is always kind of overrated. That's my belief, that most students will say, if I get a recommendation from the CEO, that will just make the deal. Typically not the case, right? Make sure you get your recommendation from somebody who knows you, who has got enough exposure with you, and who can bring out say interesting points out about you, right? So that and that will carry a lot more weight than say some getting it from somebody very senior but who has kind of a very limited exposure with you. Doesn't fly. Okay, Akhil has a question, simple one. Is 2 to 3 years work ex enough for a top B school? Uh, it's on the lower side. So again, I'm saying it kind of uh, you know 3 to 4 is the right time, or say it's the initial part. In ISB in particular, there were very few, maybe out of a batch of 425 at the time I was there, 560, sorry. Out of 560 people, maybe there were 3 people, 2, 3 people who had come there with an experience of 2 years, or say less than 2, 3, or let me say 2 years. So the 2 years experience is definitely on the low side, but but say 3 years it will fly. It will start flying, but 2 years is very low unless you come with a very strong profile. So say again, you're a national level champion of something, or you have world Olympiad. You kind of cracked that, and you come with a superstar profile. 2 years is possible, or say let me it is quite likely with 2 years, but with a say let me say a standard profile, 2 years is difficult to fly. Ashutosh has one question, I think. Is a IT services experience act as a hindrance? I think we covered. See, we covered that part again, earlier as well, but nevertheless, see, it's not a hindrance. Let me put you have to work extra hard. So if you are from an IT services company, then you have, in any ISP, evaluation time, you would find, I don't know, maybe something like 100 odd applicants, 100 plus applicants from TCS itself, right? So what do you do? So if you are one of those candidates, do something to stand out of that crowd, right? And B school application and admission is all about how do you ensure you stand out of the crowd. So that makes your job difficult. So if you are saying, I'm from IT services, and then I got through, then I went for an offsite and came back, and that's about it. Then things are difficult for you.
And so there is also this question that people keep asking that so they are probably working into some of the organizations, and then they start off something as part-time. Should they include those part-time stuff as part of their
Absolutely.
essays? Like somebody is running an NGO, like a friend of mine is running an NGO along with his job itself.
Absolutely, without a doubt, unequivocally, yes. So if you're doing something that's part of you, you are not selling your organization, you're selling yourself, right? So please talk about it, right? And for that matter, that will probably have a greater weight than a lot of other things that you might think will sell better. So very strongly recommended if you're working on with an NGO or particular project, or an side startup, anything, please make sure that you use even if you have to use the optional essay, tell them please do. You should definitely do that. Don't leave it. No?
Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
So, you can put in some of the questions. We are open for questions, I guess, still. So if anybody has a question, any additional in terms of this. Anything that comes often, Jay?
Uh, so just wanted to grab the views on like a lot of applicants face this issue. Like most of the schools would ask you to write one strength and one weakness.
Hmm.
So we all are very good to highlight our strengths, but
Right.
it's obviously difficult to highlight a weakness because you don't want a weakness to come across that is actually a weakness to your strength itself. But so how
Hmm.
should you do that? So, and there is also this way that people use this as a naive approach that they would try to portray their weakness as a strength, and which actually
Correct.
creates a
Correct.
negative
Correct.
effect in terms of the outcome.
See, I wrote a piece about it on GMAT Exchange. You can obviously I'll recommend everybody to read that. But the you know it's a kind of a tricky situation. Don't don't overdo it. Don't go and say I'm lazy. Don't be don't get that honest. If I say don't do that. At the same time, you cannot say, I work too hard, and hence, that sometimes works against me. It should look authentic. So, I'll tell you what I used to say. So I used to say, I'm not as good at in technology as I would like to be, right? So I was not from a technology background, although I did my engineering, but then I went to research analytics firm. So I was not required to work on technology, but I said in this day and age, you should know technology, you should have those exposures. I think I don't have. But while you do speak about your weakness, make sure that you are presenting it as a learning, right? So you say I have not done that, but off late I have started working. I don't know. I'm taking a Coursera course and I've started making a portal. It's happening over time. It's working out slowly, but surely I'm doing it. So something to that effect, which shows that there is a weakness, but you are working on it. You have identified it, and then you are kind of learning from it. So if you can give it that twist, it will sell.
So that's a sign, also sign of a good future manager, that you know your shortcomings and
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
working. So
correct,
that's probably the best way to handle this question.
correct. So, but at the same time, a real weakness, but at the same time, you are kind of working it and you're trying to cover it up now. So do something like that.
And also in terms of writing those essays, it's important to use good examples to highlight to come up with actually the story. So just elaborate on like what kind of examples and what is the general structure of essays that one should think of while.
So yeah, very important. And kind of if we dive a little deep into the whole essay part, right? The one biggest mistake that I see with most Indian candidates is, we keep right. Okay, I am good at this. I had got a great exposure. I worked on very challenging projects. And that's all. See, it does not make any impact unless you get very specific about it. So say that I worked on the most challenging project of my company, in which we had to deliver project of this much size in such a short duration for a very challenging client, and we did X, Y, Z to actually achieve that, right? So an essay is more of your story, right? So saying something as specific as that will clearly demonstrate to the adcom that this guy has done something, as against saying something like, I have worked on some of the most challenging projects. That's in MBA language, that's called cheap talk, right? Because anybody can say that, right? Because you can say challenging, I can say challenging. I don't know how much challenging was your, and how do we do it comparatively between yours and mine, right? Speak sense about it. Don't beat around the bush. That's very important.
Just going a bit deeper into that question. So comparing the Indian profiles with some of the US student profiles or European student profiles. So most of the US or European students, if they're working into a particular segment of an industry, they generally do spend a lot of time at that position. So they have a lot of depth into their fields. And whereas compared to most of the Indian profiles, we have a lot of breadth in our profiles. So how to go
Hmm.
about fixing those issues, because obviously the Indian context of business is a bit different from what US and Europe does.
Correct. And I think the other problem is also that our academic process does not really train us to express ourselves well, and kind of be more expressive about it. Most of the time we are very formal and to the point, bullet point oriented, very mathematical in, let me say, in how we do things, right? So from that standpoint, obviously, it's a tougher job for an Indian candidate to come to that kind of a level, right? And you have to, that's where I'm saying, please keep time in your hand when you're starting your application. Do not pick up the application a week in advance and say, okay, I only have to write an essay, I'll do that, right? It's not as simple as that. You really have to demonstrate a lot of values. And for a lot of applications, especially like ISB, they do not give you a lot of words, right? So essay limit for ISB is 300 words. How much can you write on 300 words? That's too low, right? So if you're too casual about it, 300 words will be over before you even get to the point. So that's the point where I'm saying you have to be articulate, you have to demonstrate your personality, show depth in what you have done. I understand the kind of exposure that we have, but again, it's a very individualistic thing, right? Some more breadth, but focus on your strengths, and it will do, it will be fine. But just make sure that the quality of your application is good, because the challenge is pretty cutthroat that way.
So generally, what I have seen is like 1 month is the minimum time that, well, at least 20 days is the minimum time that you should spend. And if you're trying to spend 1 month on the application, it would really help. So,
Correct. See, and I'll tell you something. I'll if as an application evaluator, say I can think of my time, right? So when or say 5-6 application on a trot, right? If it is too mathematical and it does not show a personality, lose out. Eventually spends how much? Maybe at kind of a 15-20 minutes with your application, reading all your essays, your recommend other parts of your profile, right? So if there is not a clear message, a clear personality that is driven out of that application, what it's like, if I have spent 15-20 minutes, I should be able to say what kind of a person Jay is, right? that, I said, okay, I just evaluated this application. This guy is really good with academics. He has done some really interesting stuff. Even professionally, his focus, he's not a breadth guy, but what he has done well. So once I have that clear picture in my mind, I will be able to rate that person very well. Compare that to somebody who has a very kind of a mathematical, technical, bulleted kind of a profile with a lot of data point. Most of it will not stick to my mind, and you know, the only person who loses is the applicant, right? So it all has to come out as a story, right? Think of it as a book or a movie, right? It's kind of it should kind of convey a feeling or an idea to the to the
And
evaluator.
it's also important to think that most of the AdCom community, AdCom team that is evaluating your application is not exactly a very technical team. They'd be very generalist kind of profile who will be specifically evaluating those kind of experiences.
Hmm. Hmm. There are some questions that have come. Swapnil, I guess we need to quantify what we speak, right? Exactly. Absolutely. You quantify. Absolutely. That's exactly the word I use with all people I work with. Please quantify. So say that I was one of so quantify to the extent now that we are using that word. You're saying I I got an award, for example, right? So say I got the star award in my organization. What does that tell me in terms of, you got a star award? How big is that star award? Is it of any value or not? Is it something that every second guy gets, right? So say I got a star award in which I was selected in, say, the top five among 200 2,000 other employees, right? So as soon as I read that, I said, boss, this guy is an A-lister, right? So that's the point where you have to quantify, because an award in organization A and an award in organization B, there's just no correlation between the two, right? So there's no way I can know how valuable is your award or anything else for that matter, unless you really quantify. So that's very important. I think Jay, you were saying something.
No, I was just asking you if you have more questions pouring in.
There are questions coming in. Okay. Okay, Ashutosh has a question here. Again, we are coming back to for an IT workex, how do you really overcome the disadvantage of the bigger pool, and how do you ensure that the application stands out? See, obviously, look at it this way: your work experiences with what it is, right? Please demonstrate how you dive deeper, right? Do not say I was working with, say, a type of services and stop at that, right? So go deeper in terms of what is the kind of exposure you got. Cull the maximum out of and say, we worked in such great technologies or these kind of challenging situations, because and it is also part of it is about selling, right? So you have to kind of market that experience, uh, go deep in terms of demonstrate everything in terms of whatever your extra or co-curricular activities you have been involved in, stuff like any side project or things that you have been a part of, right? Initiatives that you have taken within your organization or outside the organization, doesn't matter. For that matter, also things you did in your grad school, right? So grad school still fine. Don't go to the point of saying what you did in class 8. That's too far back. but yes, grad school, what you did, what have you been up to, kind of bring out the personality. And I typically ask, the first thing you should do is and just sit and reflect back on everything that you have done in your life, right? And some of these things they are a lot more marketable than you think they are, right? So saying, and it obviously comes out in terms of how do you really demonstrate that particular kind of value.
Do we include
Do we
industry?
include? No, typically not. That is not counted as work experience. Applications would state it clearly. Please tell full-time jobs. If it is an industry, it's kind of a training post your graduation. It is fine, but say whatever 2 month or 6 month training during your 6th semester or 8th semester, that will not count.
Is anybody writing some of the questions? I see somebody typing. So I guess, Anshul, we can kind of wrap up now for now, and probably that should be it for the day. We have no more questions coming in. Hello.
Your voice is not coming very clearly, at least to me.
So what I'm saying is that we don't have any more questions coming in. Probably we can start to wrap up.
Sure. Nonetheless, I think we should maybe it was interesting. What I would what I would suggest, as we say goodbye, is essentially please please plan in advance. Do not leave it to the last moment. In terms of, most people will say, okay, I want to apply for for fall 2016, or whatever that time is, and the application is coming, say the deadline starts in, say, September or October. So you will keep procrastinating and start doing, working, and you'll realize it's already June, July, and you haven't even taken your GMAT. So please take your GMAT on time. If you are prepared, please try and keep it in your mind. It's not expiring anytime soon. Do not time it too close to your application cycle, because most of the time, you know, people they delay their GMAT. At times they take their GMAT again, and they do all of that at the cost of their application in time that they have to spend, and that is suicidal for a lot of people, right? So please don't do that. Do your GMAT. Take maybe a month or two off this whole process, right? So give your GMAT and get done with it by May, for example. So if you still have 3-4 months, give your GMAT, get done with it, and then that's the point when the application cycle starts. Start early, so that you can really spend time thinking. And believe me, you will have to think a lot and cull a lot out of whatever you have done in your life till now. So keep that in mind, and just make sure of all things, time is not the factor that kind of spoils the pitch for you.
That's right. We'd like to thank you, Anshul, for the beautiful session that you gave us, and it was pretty informative. You actually answered a lot of questions that most of the students we have.
Thanks, thank you, and it was pleasure. And I wish all the best to all candidates. Do well and have fun.
So for everybody else, I mean, if you have any specific questions to Anshul, you can log into gmatexchange.com and you can ask your questions to Anshul directly over there. Okay, bye guys. It was pretty good speaking to you all.
Yep. Take care. Have a good night. I think for most of you it must be night. So good night, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.